So on Wednesday, we were looking at this can. We had this can that we placed, and I think when we left off, we had just created the silhouette of it and basically had this shape right here. And where we're headed is to do something a little more like this with some shadowing, some sort of shadowing on it, that kind of thing. A brief, illustration related kind of a comment. We're just going to, here, I'm just kind of creating an orthographic view. I'm going to keep the edges straight. I'm not trying to give it perspective or anything else. It's just a kind of a clip art style piece. But in this, sort of, the way this is built out sort of indicates like our light source is coming straight from the front of this object. But, when we're doing things like this, whatever direction your light source is on, your shadow or your high contrast areas are going to vary a little bit always. And actually, I think the example I'm going to do is going to imagine that, I think whenever I continue this, this next version is going to pretend there's a light source kind of sitting over here to the side so that it's darker on this side and lighter on this side. But I'm just creating a high contrast piece of art, strictly black and white. I'd have no values of gray, color, or anything else with this. It's just strictly black and white artwork. So, which is kind of like, next week I'm going to introduce the first exercise, or the first project, which is creating your own artwork that you're going to trace and create a single high contrast piece of artwork out of. So I'm kind of doing this to sort of lay groundwork for that a little bit. Which means nobody can pick a pop can to do whenever we do this. But, so this is kind of where I'm headed with this. And I'm going to build all of that. Oops. There, grab my right. All right. I'm going to build the rest of that out of this shape. So if I look at this in outline mode, it's just a compound path, a single filled shape. I want to do this actually, I just want to keep reusing shapes though that I've already built, all right? So even though I've made a compound path out of this object already, I can still access the individual paths that are inside of it. So this is a compound path right now. If I double click on it, just right on the path, I'll zoom in here just a little bit. If I double click right on the path, you'll see that I can select strictly this inside path whenever I do that. And I can copy that, Command C on my keyboard. And then if I go back to my preview mode and I just paste this in place, it'll sit right there. I've still got, if I look at the can, I've still got my compound path, but I've now got a filled piece that's going to allow me to do these other things here that I want to do. So what I'm looking at with this piece of art is I've got like a reflected light along this edge that I want to maintain. And then I've got these shadow areas, these two black areas. So we're just going to use that shape that I just copied out of the compound path to do those. All right. So, and we're probably going to modify these a little bit. We're probably going to have to. That's kind of why I showed you the scissors tool and eraser tool. But, so with this shape selected, I'm just going to click on the handlebar on the edge and hold down my Option key and just sort of scale that in a little bit. I just kind of want to create that white reflected light that I had. And then I'm just going to copy this Yeah, well, actually, and if you want to, I'm going to actually vary this a little bit. I'm actually going to make it a little thin, this bounce slide a little thinner on one side than it is the other side. Make them both the same or do what I'm doing. Either one is fine. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to copy this again. Copy it and paste it in place. It's going to be a little easier to see what I'm doing if I go to outline mode. Then I'm going to do what I just did. Again, I'm just going to hold down that side handlebar and hold down my Option key and sort of draw that in a little bit more. And then I'm just going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to make it narrower on one side than it is the other side. And I can kind of preview what I'm getting. If I just take this object and I just change it to a white shape, just so I can see what I'm doing. This is sort of where I'm heading. It's sort of what I'm going to get. And we can adjust that more if we need to. I want to drag that over. Do something kind of like that. And then remember, we're just trying to make a black and white piece of artwork. So I'm just going to select the white one, and I'm going to select the black piece inside of it, just these two shapes. And I can either use my pathfinders to do a minus front, or I could go over here and use our new tool, hold down the Option key, and subtract that white shape from the black. Easiest way to tell if you're getting the right results, just select everything and briefly slide it off the edge of your artboard. Actually, another trick I could do so I could always tell what I've got, I'm going to create a background layer. I want to drag down here below everything else. And I'll just put a pink rectangle. There, so that I can see that I'm getting the results that I want. And now I just kind of want to unite these together. So select my outline, select my shadowed shape, and I'll just unite those. So what do I have? And I think I have something that didn't work out quite right, but I'm going to fix that. And whenever I say it didn't work out quite right, I'm seeing edges in here that I shouldn't see. Yeah, those did not unite correctly. So let me grab, oh, I know why it didn't do it. So I'm going to select each of these halves, make those a compound path. I should have done that in the first place. I should have been able to unite those, but selected too many objects. Undo that again, undo it again. All right, there we go. I didn't undo enough. Select those. Actually, I could probably just, yeah, let's make those compound paths. And now I want to try to unite these again and see if I get the right thing. Nope. They're probably not exactly overlapping anymore. So I'm just going to sort of draw these up a little bit to make sure they overlap. Turn off my smart guides and snap the point because they're getting in the way. barely drag those up. Barely drag that down just to make sure they overlap. And then select those and unite them. There we go. Follow along okay so far? And then, you know, I just need, from this point forward, it's really just a matter of kind of putting some detail into it. Like the lip up here, should probably have a shadow underneath it. So I could kind of draw that in. And I'm just going to keep it simple. I mean, I could probably make this we'll leave it straight. Draw that, unite those together. Could do the same thing down here at the bottom. Sort of draw in a shadow area. Maybe a little bit of bounced light. Just sort of adjusting these shapes as we need to. Maybe I'll drag, maybe that needs to be a little taller. So I can select that, get that kind of the way I like it. That works out pretty well. Select it all, unite those together. One thing I didn't pay much attention to that'll probably get in my way is, you know, really in something like this, I think rounded, I think sharp corners really aren't very natural feeling. So I can select these corners and just kind of round them over a little bit just to soften them up. So something to point out here real quick. If you notice, let me undo those and go to outline mode. So if I zoom in here, notice that whenever I did this, I already had a point on this shape here, and I got a new point that I created up here, and they're really kind of close together. When I click on this corner and go to round it over, it will only round as far as the next point on the path. So if I've got 2 points that are like really close together or like almost right on top of each other, this corner widget doesn't really, probably won't behave exactly the way we want it to. That's honestly just kind of one of those things that if it doesn't work out, you really just kind of need to adjust things a little bit to make sure you eliminate what's going to happen. Because when it unites these shapes together, it creates a new point, you know? So this one worked out okay. It could have just as easily not. I'm going to go to the bottom. Round these over a little bit. You know, kind of work that out however you want. I kind of don't like what I ended up with up here. I think I'd change that probably and fix it. But you kind of get the idea of how, you know, I can copy a path out of a compound path, an already established compound path, and I can continue to use that to build my objects. And maybe we, just to take it a step further, I mean, I've pretty much done, there's, like I said, there's some areas that I kind of want to clean up and change. I think I'd like to be able to round this lower corner, these corners off a little bit more. I don't think they should be more. I can play around with those a little bit. Actually, probably the easiest way to play around with these is just to select these points, hold down my shift key, and sort of slide them up out of the way. And adjust the handlebars on them. Probably the simplest thing there. So that's a fairly simple, high contrast piece of art. You can carry this out as kind of as far as you want to carry it. I mean, maybe we carry this out a little bit more by typing a name or a word. Place it on it. Find a typeface. Do. So we can do as many things as we want to with that. I can still create other, I could use a line segment tool to maybe create an additional highlight on this edge if I wanted to. Select that, outline that stroke. But we kind of start with the silhouette of the object, and we just work our way into the details of it. And I think, especially when creating an original piece of artwork, that's a good way of going about it, is to start with your silhouette. Have an interesting silhouette before you even start, and then work your way into the details. And I really only use that canned image that I placed just to get my overall shape right. All the other details I'm just kind of deciding on as I go, I've got my curvature tool. I could, curve edges a little bit. Fine tune any number of ways. Mechanical, machine kinds of things are easy to do this with. I've done the same kind of process with birds, It's easy to relatively easy to build those, break those down into geometric shapes, combine them, refine them, and tweak them. And we've created some kind of interesting things here so far in 2 weeks, and we really haven't touched a pen tool or any of the advanced stuff yet, Working with primitives can just be, it's sort of just a little bit of a different way of thinking. So, this, you're welcome to keep kind of detailing that if you want. I think I am going to modify this a little bit more. I don't like how this lip area up here works. I'm going to turn my snap to point and my smart guides back on. And I'm just going to select all of that. And subtract it, and I'm going to rework that area. I just didn't really care for what I had. So what I want you to do with the rest of class is, until